watching the video blog Kicking Aging's Ass with Dr. Dave Marcone. It's been a while since I did one of these videos. As I said in my first video, the predominance of this, why I do it, is because it makes me feel good. Sometimes I just have to get this information out. Now, if anybody else finds it valuable, that's a real winner. That's a real winner. Over the last couple of months, I've been really busy. I actually had given a few lectures to anatomy physiology students here at our local high school. I've taken on some other extracurricular activities where I'm doing a lot of writing and doing some videos too for the Knights of Columbus here in the Anderson Township area. Having said that, I'm back. And I'll tell you what, here we are, we're getting ready to come into February, and I really think this is a great time to talk about one aspect of health that I think everybody is probably made a New Year's resolution about: diet. So I have to preface this by saying that I was not always the type of person that thought that diet was the pinnacle of your health. And to give you an example, probably in my 40s, and I had a couple chiropractors and other types of doctors working for me and with me, we had a conversation. And it was this: if you could only choose one thing to change in your life, what would it be? Would you change your diet, or would you add exercise? All of them said diet was the most important aspect of your health, except me, the exorcist. I said, nah, you gotta stay active, you've gotta work out. It was interesting. We had debates over this for so many different times, and they couldn't change my mind. A couple of years later, though, I realized I was wrong. Here's what happened. So in my kind of mid-40s, you get very busy. You're working and you have children, and although we didn't bring a lot of junk into the house, I did want my kids to have, a little taste of some of the things that I grew up with, whether it be, having some ice cream, having, the sugary cakes and things like that. And of course, they had a real liking for things like Pop-Tarts, and they were in the house. Not a lot, but enough that I started eating them again. I hadn't eaten these things in years, okay? But more importantly, I think what happened is my metabolism changed. And all of a sudden, I was working out, but I was getting a little bit fatter. And it was interesting. I didn't eat that much of this garbage, but I was also eating a lot of food. So here's what happens. You get a little older, no matter how much you work out, you don't need that many calories, but I have this huge appetite, right? And I always thought I could work it off, but I couldn't. So a big changing moment, I was at a standard process seminar up in Westerville, Ohio. Great company, I'll talk about it later. And they were talking about this detox, purification, and it's a great way to change your diet and clean out yourself. And so I talked with my wife about it, and we both did the program. It was 21 days. And I lost like 20-some pounds. Most of it right here, right in my midsection. But I realized something probably more important is that just because it went in my mouth doesn't mean it's all it is about, your body weight and your fat. I noticed that after the first couple of days, and I'm going to tell you, when you change your diet like that, first couple of days you feel like you're gotten a cold. After that phase, I started feeling better. And I say feeling better, I was sleeping through the night. I wasn't bloated after eating, and my mood was better. It was amazing, because I was a little irritable during that phase of my life. And it was the aha moment that I needed, that it's like, you know what? Diet is important. Now, having said that, I bet you when I first started saying diet, you're thinking, oh, he's going to recommend some kind of keto or paleo or, oh my God, vegan. I can never eat a burger again. And no, I think they all have a lot of positives. Actually, the question always arose in my mind when I read the research on them is, if you're paleo, they've reduced diabetes. Vegans all over the world have less cancer. And you've probably seen things like this in newspapers and advertisements. So I've always wondered, are they full of crap? Is this bullshit? Or can they all be right? Can they all be healthful? Well, my feeling is, yeah, they all can be healthful because they have one thing in common. They don't tell you you can eat all the crap you want as long as it's not protein, or you can eat all the crap you want as long as it has grains in it. No, you got to eat clean and healthy, okay? You have to have good food, good products. So I'm going to step back a little bit and tell you why I believe, and the research shows, that there isn't one single diet that is just healthy or great for all men, okay? There's more than one. One of the big things in research, who they study, are hunter and gather societies. These are, you know, kind of like the primal man. The men go out and hunt, the women gather tubers, vegetables, pick things, okay? And the one tribe that they have studied more than anyone else, are the Hasdas. They are a hunter-gatherer society in Africa. And so the men every day go out, they hunt. They're very active. Actually, they put in about 7 to 10 miles a day walking. That's just their hunting. That doesn't go into all the other things they do when they kind of are relaxing, because they don't just sit around, okay? The women, 5 to 7 miles as they, again, pick and gather vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, things of that nature. They have tremendous health. Actually, when you take out accidents, which are very, very, they don't have hospitals around every corner and all that. When you take out the accidents and things like that, they live almost as long as Americans do, okay? They don't have diabetes. They don't die of heart attacks. They live to be 70, 80 years old, okay? So, here's the thing. When hunting's really good, they're going to eat a lot more meat. When hunting's not so good, they got to what? Eat more of the tubers, eat more of the vegetables. Actually, in his book called Exercised, Daniel Lieberman, PhD in paleontology, who has studied the Hasdas, said that, and sometimes when the hunting is not going so good, the men will get 70% of their daily calories from sugar. Honey. They eat honey, okay? And also, which is interesting, you got to remember, they're not shopping at the grocery store. So you don't always have vegetables growing. You don't always have fruit on the vines. So your diet is very dependent on the environment, let alone the environment you live in. And again, Hasdas are in Africa, but there's been hunter-gatherers in South America and all these other places. They don't always have the same foods, right? Again, proves my point that there is no one single diet that is right for all humans, okay? And this is why you read those things and you think, how can they all be right? They can be, because it's eating whole foods, okay? Body's amazing what it can adapt to. Having said that, here in our country, we got this issue, okay? What is a standard American diet? SAD. Well, what we come from to learn in SAD is it's highly processed, low in nutrition, and the big one in my mind is extremely low in soluble and insoluble fiber. And you're saying, what the hell's fiber have to do with anything? Well, fiber is very important to your gastrointestinal tract, to your good bacteria that protects the inner lining of your GI tract. It disseminates what gets into the blood, okay? And it just keeps you healthy. It's estimated that 90% of Americans are low in fiber. So here you go. Standard American diet is just really bad. Don't even take into consideration that so many people eat out now. You know, when I was a kid, eating out it kind of showed you had some money, right? Otherwise, you ate home. It's too expensive to eat out, right? Today, every corner there's 4 or 5 different fast foods and things like that going on, let alone you don't even have to leave the house, right? Call them up, text them, they'll bring the food to your house. You don't have to do anything. So the real issue in my mind is not we don't eat a good diet. It's like we don't eat good food no matter what the diet is. How did we get to this point of so much processed food? Okay? I know a lot of people will say, well, you know what, it's big business. They just wanted to make it cheaper and make more money. They didn't give a damn about us. I'm sure there was some business to it, but you know, if you look into it, processing food was an essential to the burgeoning American culture. Start off with immigration. Even the Pilgrims didn't have foods here that they had in England, right? So in the 1850s, with the big development of Irish coming to this country, okay, what were they doing? They didn't live out on farms, well, some did. Most of them came and they worked in these factories. That means they were in urban areas, okay? And they lived together. You know, that's what immigrants do. They go to an area where, number one, they can afford. Number two, to an area where people understand their language and understand their culture, and who can help them assimilate into this American culture. Fantastic, right? Here's the deal though, in these areas that are dense population, you're not growing food, you don't have cows over there. So the real question was, how do we get the food from the farm, from the dairy, to that urban core so we can feed these people, let alone it can't be too expensive because they don't have anything. And we know from these immigrants that there was a lot of disease, early death, especially those working in factory conditions, and also because they didn't have enough food, okay? They were malnourished or undernourished. So this is a real dilemma, all right? The next thing where processing of food was a little bit easier or was a necessity was World War. So not only you're taking food from the farm to the city, and you have to keep it fresh, and you got to make it efficient. How about when you take it overseas on a boat? How long do you think that you know, apples or meat is going to subsist, be fresh and healthy before it goes bad, right? So the big thing here, World War II, was the epitome of American progression into processing of food, okay? It's said that the US government was feeding 11 million people overseas. 11 million, it's huge, right? You gotta remember the population back in the 40s, right? So the government had a big hand in the processing, the companies who process food, because they were a big purchaser, but also because they still were responsible for the people here in the United States who weren't at war. Now you've got less farmers, you got less factory workers, you got less people distributing the food. So now, can you have people over here eating like they did before the war, and then still be producing all this food, processing it for the men and women overseas? The answer is no. There just wasn't enough man hours. The federal government not only threw a lot of money into these processing companies, but they also made it very clear through rationing that they wanted the American population here, still in this country, to be patriots, to help the cause by eating basically the same food that the men and women overseas were eating, okay? Eat canned vegetables, can your own vegetables, eat meats in cans. Now the rationing made it much more convincing. You couldn't buy as much of the fresh food. You could buy a little bit more of the processed food. And you were being a good American citizen, and you were supporting our troops and basically the American way. So that created a habit. Now, the next, post-war, okay? One of the things that happened post-war is we had this thing called a television set. So by 1955, it's estimated that 60% of the American population had a TV. So even though we had radios before and everybody listened to the radio at night, it's a different medium. You literally now had advertising showing foods, processed foods, okay? And you could see it, and you could see the people enjoying it, okay? Couple this with one other thing, and now you have big changes in how we eat and the foods we eat, okay? During the war, the men were overseas. So in order to help the cause, women had to come out of the house and work in factories. You've seen Rosie the Riveter, right? Well, when the war was over and the men came back, kind of went back to the way it used to be. Men were preferred in the factories over women. But guess what? Once they got that taste of being outside the home, making their own money, having their own income, women loved it and wanted more of it, okay? Now, when you combine that women wanted to work outside the house, okay, and you combine that with the TV set, this is huge. First of all, what were you watching on TV? Father Knows Best, Ozzie and Harriet, all of these TV shows showed the quintessential family. Dad worked, mom took care of the family. Kids were always fed, looked great. At the end of the night, when dad came home, the meal was on the table and mom looked phenomenal, okay? That was the epitome of an American family. But guess what? That's hard as hell to do, especially if you have an interest outside of the house. So, commercials that were on these talked about, don't go over there and get those fresh potatoes. It takes too long. Use these potatoes here. You add a little bit of water and milk, cook them up. They taste just like the potatoes you had before, and look how much time you save. Don't go out there and pick beans and separate them and all this. Go get a can of beans, open it up, throw it in, warm it up, and you have a great meal. So it was part of women's developing equal rights, that they weren't a slave to the house, but they still could take care of their family, feed them, but with less time invested. The last thing, and one that I found extremely interesting, is post-World War, or what they now call the Cold War, was the Americans, right, us, versus the Russians, our former allies. But now, it was basically democracy against communism. And so we battled. It was who's going to get on the moon first, right? Who's going to attack the other one with a bomb or whatever. So we really clashed. In the late 50s, well, yeah, it was under Dwight Eisenhower that the future president, Richard Nixon, went over to Russia promoting what? Processed food. So some saw it as a way to open up another market and promote a type of, entity that was unique in the world, right? But some also saw it as a thumbing your nose at communism. Look at you guys. Look how much energy you waste. Look how much time you waste. Look at us. We're so much smarter than you. We've been able to package and process this food so we don't have to waste as much time. We're so much more intelligent because we're a democracy. Those are the big things. Now, here we are. We probably have at least one, if not two generations that don't cook. They don't, they didn't grow up with mom, getting a chicken and making it and picking vegetables or going to the market and picking vegetables. Just, they got Stofers, they got lean cuisine, they ate out. And it's difficult because, in order to profit, companies really are become scientific and cutting back on the nutritional value in order to keep foods that'll last forever through a nuclear holocaust, right? And it's coming at a cost of the quality of the food. So a couple things I want to get across today, highlights, is, as we said in the beginning, number one, hey, there's no single diet, okay? Don't force yourself to be a vegan or force yourself to eat a high protein diet. Reality is that all of these diets have pluses, okay? I always say, go to the one you'll be easiest to adapt to, right? If you like a hamburger, you like chicken, all that kind of stuff, you like the proteins, good, do the paleo keto. You still need to eat vegetables. You still need to eat fruits, okay? So you still need the nutrition. And vice versa, if you've never been big on eating, animal product, right? You can do vegetarian and vegan, okay? You still can get your protein, okay? And again, it's about what's comfortable. Most important thing is you have got to be at least a little comfortable in the beginning in order to maintain the consistency and get the habit. And again, these are templates, meaning that, you know, they're giving you an idea. You don't know where to start? Fine. Pick up on one of these. They have recipes. You can learn what you like, what you not like, adapt them a little bit. And over a period of time, you'll know that your lifestyle, if you're really active or not very active, or what other things is, and how you can kind of manipulate. You'll become your expert at the end of that day. The other thing is, you're not going to be able to like go and just lose weight and still be healthy in a matter of days or weeks. Okay, it's not happening. This is why so many people turn to medications in order to lose weight or practically starve themselves. I always say start simple. For many people, you know what your weaknesses are. I eat out too much. I drink too much pop. Man, every day I'm eating cake and ice cream. Look at those big flaws, those big problems. Focus on them. Get them to the point where you substitute in some good habits for those bad habits. And again, I've told this to patients. You can't be like, oh, I'll eat it on the weekend. It'll still taste really good. You just got to go cold turkey away from that stuff until one day when you try it, you're like, I don't know how I liked it. But go for those big weaknesses, And again, if you're eating out, I'm a big proponent of prepping food. The old adage is if you prepared to win or prepared to lose, okay? Preparation. Once, twice a week, I make a couple of big meals. We eat them at the time, and then I put the others back into microwavable containers, right? And then I take them here to the office, I warm them up, I have them at night. Usually I make 3 or 4 different meals, and that gets me through a week, okay? Now again, some people have become very, meals are like, they have to be kind of sexy to them. It's got to feel really good. Sadly, you got to think of food more as it's fuel, right? You don't go up to the gas tank and smell the gas and say, nah, I don't feel like, 87% today. Let me go with the 90. Fuel is fuel. You got to get the best fuel in you, okay? So, realize that sometimes when you sit there and say, what do I want to eat? If you prepare it, I tell you, you won't let it rot in your refrigerator. You'll eat it, okay? And again, remember, these bodies of ours are meant to survive. It's up to us and the decisions we make in order to make that body thrive. So till the next time, kick aging's ass. Take care.